over the resolution ratifying emergency equipment procurement and emergency repairs to well 14. One, approve the emergency procurement of a new well motor and emergency service call from Shannon Pump Company in the amount of $84,853.63. Two, to authorize the Finance Department to make a supplemental appropriation to the Water Enterprise Fund in the amount of $84,853.63. And three, to authorize the city manager to execute all requiring documents. So I wanted to pull the item for a couple of different reasons, and but I think I do have a quick, actually just a quick question, and these are questions that are already asked previously to staff, but one of the questions was this particular pump, because I know that in the past we talked about different items, motors and different parts, but this one is specifically a submersible pump. And thinking ahead of whether or not, what are some of the things that we could do ahead of time, if anything. I think last time I asked a question, do we have all of the water wells with the same pumps, with the same equipment? And you said, well, no, because they have been service built with different equipment. So, and it kind of goes back to this situation again, that if we eventually were able to have all of the wells with the same system or the same pumps, we could have some pumps, as not necessarily spare parts, but extras on standby. That way we could save some money and save time, because in this particular item, I believe there was like almost a little bit over a month wait because
that's correct.
Parts, right?
Right.
So just thinking worst case scenario, if another something else happened in another well, then we have two wells that are down, or potentially could, we don't want to have this situation in the summer. But just thinking, one of the questions that I asked earlier was, what are some of the things that we could do if we can figure out that some of these pumps are, you mentioned could be 1 to 2 years, some pumps 3 to 4, depending on conditions of that particular well. So I guess my big question is, what can we do? And I think you already answered the question, but for the public, what could we do to put in place to possibly be more supportive of efforts to be more proactive rather than reactive, and prevent emergencies from happening?
I would like to just, before staff, I'd like to just provide a little bit of context for the public and for the council. So the city of Livingston has a number of assets that have been constructed over the course of many decades. So not all of the wells were constructed within a 5-year time frame or a 10-year time frame. These are assets that you've had over a large period of time. So that's why there's a lot of differentiations. And with that context in mind, staff can go ahead and address some of the questions, and then I'll jump in.
And another issue that arises on keeping all the wells the same size, the same motor size, the same production, and it's all dependent, and engineering knows more about this than I do, on the test well. The availability of water in that aquifer at that time when it's drilled. Some bear more water in areas and some don't, so that's a limiting factor on production at a certain well. Another scenario we could look at, Mayor, is possibly, again, we would have to consult with our engineering department, is looking at moving that well over to a turbine pump to match all our other turbine wells, and if there's enough room in there to put, or if that's a possibility, we could look at turning that into a turbine well instead of submersible, because that is the only submersible that we have. We could also look at inventory of our critical inventory, keeping that on the shelf, but it's When will it go out? We don't know. It could be on our shelf for years. But then we can have issues. We don't know. It's mechanical in nature, so we really can't predict that, but we can try to be prepared.
And then I think you bring up a good point, and thank you for letting me know, because I didn't know that this was the only one that wasn't, that is different. And then possibly if this well, I mean, actually this motor or this pump lasted, I believe you said, roughly about 2 years?
This last go around, yeah.
About 2 years. So if we could look at, and then again, I don't know, if we could look at what the current cost of a second spare pump is currently, and then again, versus what it could be in 2 years, not only will it save us possibly time, like a month, like, and I'm not saying that it's going to be a month next time, but at worst case scenario, we're looking, 4 to 5 weeks. And then even if it's end up costing or even saving us a little bit of money within 2 years, but at least we could prevent a bigger emergency if it happened during the summer. So I'm always looking at the worst case scenario. Right now, it's a good time it's not a good time for this to happen because it's an expense, but it's better for it to happen now versus, summertime and then, or where two wells. I'm just looking to kind of brainstorm and find solutions to be more preventive, and so that we can help you in that process. So if you come back and say, council, I was looking and comparing what it would cost now to buy a spare one to have as a backup versus how much it would cost in 2 years, we could still save some money. Yes, it would be sitting on the shelf, but I think it would be a recommendation that we can make. I don't know. I'm just thinking.
That's a good point.
I'm looking more of the preventing emergencies.
So that 2 year, that was a premature failure. It should have lasted longer than 2 years. But that's something we're still investigating.
What's the warranty?
Warranty is a year.
Yeah, Anthony.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, Anthony and Anthony and engineering can certainly jump in here, but, a lot of this is also related to, the amount of water that's being pumped, there might be metallurgic compositions in the water, and you guys go out there and do industry standard checkups, 365 days a year, all these different things. So, could we, predict? It's really difficult. So to the mayor's point, to, being able to budget and make things work, to have some items on the shelf, that are secured, they're not, the dust and moisture and rodents or whatever else can get to them, would make sense that we can, program some of these things.
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that. It's on my list to talk about right now as well. So well maintenance. Staff does perform industry standard maintenance checks, inspections that consist of checking and logging well run hours, filter run hours, alarms, flows, pressures, visual inspections, listening for unusual noises that equipment may be making while they're doing their rounds, checking control panels, the SCADA. For those that don't know what SCADA is a monitoring software that monitors the treatment process and sends out alarms. Grease, motors, change oil, and that's just typical industry standard checks. But staff doesn't stop there. Staff at the Public Works Department has taken steps to increase water system resiliency and reliability by one, we implemented an annual proactive well generator maintenance. And that is to ensure that in the loss of power at our water sites that we have backup generators that are going to start and run our wells and produce water. We've established a contract with Tesco to provide motor control inspections and cleaning at our well sites to ensure the motor control center is working and the equipment is in operating condition. And what they also perform is what's called a thermal imaging cameraing, videoing of our, just identify hotspots, so those can be taken care of before they become a failure. We've implemented annual well efficiency testing, which is now turned into semi-annual testing, once in the summer and once during winter. Development of a critical parts inventory that it's a work in progress, and we'll continue to add to this critical inventory every fiscal year until we are well inventoried. What we plan to do next year is just to increase reliability by budgeting for annual motor testing at all our well sites to measure the motors, to check the windings, to try to anticipate the failure before it happens. And if the windings are in good shape, we're going to receive a number back, and we'll be able to trend that number. And as it trends down to failure, we'll be able to anticipate that and see that and replace well ahead of time. But I know council knows that already, but just in case there's residents out there that haven't heard that as well.
Good, thank you. Council, are there any questions, comments?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, go ahead.
Anthony, just make sure, this is the only submersible pump? Mr. Mayor, wouldn't we need to find out if we could change it to a turbine? Because then it will match everything else in the city, right?
Yeah, we would have to get engineering to take a look at that and see if there's adequate room in there.
Yeah, before we spend a lot, I don't know what it would cost to find out, but we need to, I think that's something we would need to know. Because if we can swap it over, that would be even more savings for the city, if it's feasible. That's all, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Anthony.
Thank you. Council, anything else?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, go ahead.
Anthony, thanks for all the information on the item. I know water just in general has been a huge issue over the last couple of years, and we have taken a ton of steps to help mitigate this issue. But similar to the mayor, I'm just thinking worst case scenario, had this happened in the summer, maybe closer to peak hour demand, and we had a structure fire, the city could have been in bad shape depending on the severity of the issues. And we just learned that well 8A is now delayed. That's our largest increase to capacity coming on anytime soon. And so as I said over email, as we're planning for our next year's budget, it would be nice to have a lot of the stuff that you just said out loud in writing and have some form of formal maintenance and mitigation plan, assuming there isn't one already in your guys' database. I will be requesting that item in our future agenda items tonight, and then timeline will just be whatever capacity is on your guys' side for that. And within that, I mean, there's several elements. I included that in email. We can get more detail at some point, but I do think that would be beneficial for council to see as we plan for the next fiscal year's budget. Thank you.
Thank you. So at this time, at 8:43, I'm going to go out for public comment or questions. Is there anyone on the phone? Hearing none, going back to the chamber, 8:43. Is there anyone in the chamber with questions or comments in regards to this item?
Hi, Mr. Mayor. I do have, of course, we talked right now about some of the hard elements, but for this, there's also some soft elements that I want to talk about, and this, everybody can participate, whether it's the public, individually as a council, or as collectively. And what do I mean by this? Well, to address a lot of these issues, some of the things that we can do as a city, again, as residents, individually, businesses, and council, is there's a multi-pronged approach. One is, upgrading our infrastructure, what we're trying to do this evening, and you saw some of the water line. There's, trying to address a lot of the leaks. So the addressing leaks is making sure that we don't have loss. And so by not having that much water, having to be run through the system, of course, helps our infrastructure and therefore minimizes failure. Another one is water conservation. So all of us, doing the best we can to conserve water, that's also going to be, that's also very important. Having, going after different programs for, appliance efficiencies, shower heads, all those things also play a role in all of this. And then, we're looking at water quality protection and those components associated there. And then lastly, educating, the public and the residents about all of these different components are the soft side of things that help the hard side of the things, and together will certainly save us money and help with our infrastructure. Thank you.
All right, so if there's no additional comments or questions out in the public, I will close the public comment at this time at 8:45. Council, is there any additional questions or motions?
Mr. Mayor, I'll motion to approve.
I will second it.
First by Councilmember Paul, second by Mayor Pro Tem Samra. Roll call, please.
Roll call, Councilmember Roth.
Yes.
Councilmember Paul.
Yes.
Councilmember Wallace.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Samra.
Yes.
Mayor Moran.
Yes,
Motion passes by a vote of 5-0.
thank you.